this is our high performance program male panel. We have three individuals here with us for this session that we're very lucky to have, all island natives. We have Scott Harris, North Tryon PEI native. He was a scouting coordinator with the Columbus Blue Jackets for about 10 years, and then he's now the current director of amateur scouting operations with the New Jersey Devils. We also have Stanley Cup champion Adam McQuaid on with us from Cornwall PEI, 2005 draft pick by the Columbus Blue Jackets, and he played 512 games in the National Hockey League. Did some playing in the OHL and the AHL as well, and he's recently retired in 2021. We also have Mark Flood, Sherwood PEI native. He was drafted in 2003 by the Montreal Canadiens. Did some NHL playing days with the New York Islanders and Winnipeg Jets, and played all over the place with stints in the OHL, ECHL, AHL, KHL, the EBO League, and some other leagues like the France League as well. He's also a Spangler Cup winner, and he has recently played in Rouen, France this past season. So thanks for coming on, guys, and joining us. We'll be talking to our U14 and U15 male high performance program members this weekend. So we'll get right into it and start with the minor hockey days. So we'll start with you, Mark. Did you have somebody that you looked up to when you were young? I guess, was there any coaches that had a major influence on you growing up in your minor hockey days with Sherwood?
Well, starting off, my dad and a couple of his buddies coached us probably up until Pee Wee or so. And then after that, we had the same coaches. It was Shane Dunn and Desi Doyle, and they coached us both years of Bantam and 1 year midget. So, we developed a lot of the same guys around the team those years, and we developed a good relationship with them. Didn't necessarily, I guess, look up to anybody at that point. I think, Tanner, to be honest with you, I was kind of just having fun, being with my friends, being with my buddies, and hockey was kind of like it was kind of like a treat. You'd go to school during the day and then look forward to going to hockey at night. So, my minor hockey playing for Sherwood Parkdale was great. I had really good experience. It was, like I said, it was more fun than anything at that point. It didn't really start getting more serious, obviously, until I went away to play junior. But yeah, it was overall, Sherwood was a great spot to play. I lived close to the what was called the Sportsplex back then. I think it's called the Cody Banks Arena now. But so it was all very close geographically. And my minor hockey, it seemed a long time ago, but it was awesome. I have very fond memories.
Well, it's awesome. Hey, Scotty, we'll go to you here while we're waiting for Quater.
Mm-hmm.
I guess, in your days, who did you kind of, look up to and maybe model yourself after, if there was anyone, I guess, with the kind of the route you took to making it through, the NHL?
It's a good question, Tanner. I'm different than these two in terms of playing experience and playing at a high level. I played hockey in the South Shore organization where I played at a Crapo, but, I didn't play at a high level, not to a point where it was competitive. And I knew my path was going to be a lot different in terms of reaching my goals of being in the National Hockey League, but from a management perspective.
Right.
My dad and my mom, they were significant, influences on my life. A lot of it's more from a character to persistence to them also to just encouraging me to pursue my goals. They never forced me into anything that I didn't want to get into. And when I made the push to want to work in pro sport, that was really looked down upon because a lot of people thought it was not possible to achieve, where we're from growing up on PEI. But they were the complete opposite in terms of supporting my dreams. So I'd say that they were significant. And then of course, where I am today, it's a lot of individuals, both men and women, that I've worked with over the last 14 years that have helped get me here. But I'd say my parents are probably the biggest influence. Of course, I also had an uncle, Boyce McClellan, who's, a major supporter of my passion, my dream of working in the game. So I'd say those were probably the biggest influences in my life, to get started in my career.
Well, it's awesome. And for yourself, Adam, I guess, how was it growing up in the North River Minor Hockey Association? I guess, who did you kind of surround yourself with? And, did you have any major influences, growing up early on?
Yeah, I think for me, it's similar to Flutter. I remember my minor hockey days, just having a lot of fun. I think for me, I had one coach that sticks out, Trevor McNeil, coached me at various levels. I think really taught me, the importance of carrying yourself with a lot of class off the ice. And he was a good role model that way. I know for me, I looked up to a lot of just the older kids. If I was playing Pee Wee, I looked up to the Bantams. If I was playing Bantam, I looked up to the midgets. I was kind of always chasing, the guys that were a little bit older than me, and that pushed me to want to get better. And those are some fun memories. And I think the most important thing for me at that time that I look back on was just enjoying myself.
That's awesome. And maybe a question for Adam and Mark. Mark, we'll start with you. In your minor hockey days, did you train? And I guess if so, how did that change over the years? I guess to now playing pro. How important was your training off the ice, and what did you do, I guess, to improve that throughout the years?
Yeah, well, since Quader and I started probably transitioning to junior to now, the training has drastically changed. I mean, there were guys that were kind of, I don't know, probably just running outside, maybe lift, like doing squats and bench press when we started working out. But it's completely changed and evolved now. I didn't really start training probably till I was maybe probably 15. I kind of got introduced to it through Andy O'Brien. Actually, he grew up down the street from our family in Sherwood, so they're family friends of ours, and kind of started training with Andy. And Andy was always kind of a cutting edge guy and ahead of his time, I guess you could say. He was always looking for new techniques and evolving. So Andy kind of started training me, and probably my first year before going to the OHL, so I would have been 15 or 16. I kind of went from there. I was a very, very small kid. I was skinny and pretty scrawny, not very tall. I hit my growth spurt later. So and then of course, as my career progressed in pro, it took it quite a bit more seriously. And the summers were pretty much dedicated to training and eating well and resting and kind of getting ready for the season ahead. So certainly it's changed a lot of time. And now you have to, it's a full-time job. You have to eat well, rest, train hard, just to keep up now, like just to hit the baseline. So but I've always enjoyed it. For me, it was I took it quite seriously, as I know Quader did too, and it was good, and I still enjoy working out.
And Adam, would you say your path was kind of similar to Mark's in that sense, or I guess what did you kind of do to start off training, and how did it kind of change throughout your years and to your playing days in the NHL?
Yeah, I was probably around the similar age as Flutter. I actually think I was 16 before I really started training. It was right after I got drafted to the OHL. That was kind of when I started what I would really consider, training off ice for hockey. Up until that point, I just played other sports. The summers I would play soccer. I played basketball. I played a lot of badminton. Those are different sports that I played. So my training was really just doing other sports, being active. And I really feel like that helped me because I carry different skills that I learned from different sports, especially learning how to defend, as a defenseman. It was surprising how many little tips I took from being a defender in soccer or defending in basketball. And so that was kind of interesting. I think that was important for me. And like Flutter said, I guess when I got to that age, that was the point where I said, I need to pick one sport and be really focused on it and be really kind of dialed in. And, I was about the same height I am now, probably 40 pounds lighter than I am. So, there was a lot of work to be done, and it was fun. It was a fun process. It was something that I kind of looked at, just, small gains, small improvements. And, it is a full-time job. It's become more and more something that I think guys take more and more serious, especially when it comes to their eating habits and their sleeping habits. And so it's an area where you really need to dedicate yourself to, because everyone's doing it. And if you're not doing it, then you're going to be falling behind.
Right. And Scott, the question for you, maybe, with your guys' scouting department and the other team, obviously with the Blue Jackets, at what age do you guys start scouting players? And do you take any consideration into like what a player was like in their minor hockey days and maybe their training habits, and also whether or not they play other sports?
Yeah, we do. Like, I was just at the under 18 World Championships down in Dallas, Texas, and arguably the two best players in that class are 15-year-olds. In Bedard and also Michkov in Russia. For us, when we seriously consider a young player as a draft prospect, the heaviest emphasis does come on their 17-year-old, their year. But we look at players as early as 16 and 15 years old. When it comes to knowing a player, we learn everything about a player from when they're 13, 14, and 15 in terms of doing our homework on what these players are like off the ice, not only in the locker room, but what they're like in terms of, living with their billets, what they're like in the gym, and just what they're like around their teammates and their classmates. But the emphasis on when we truly make heavy decisions on players is, 16, 17, going on to 18, because there's a lot of maturity and development that take place from being a 14-year-old to being a 17 and 18-year-old. So we learn about these kids as early as we can, but the majority of our focus is on the 16, 17, 18 years.
And I guess moving into kind of our personal professional development topic, start with Adam with this one. I guess in your words, in your mind, I guess, what does high performance mean to you? Just kind of getting that sense of the kids with this weekend's program, and hearing it from yourself and what it means would be great to hear.
Yeah, I mean, I went through the high performance program myself with hockey PEI. I remember it being something that was a great test to be able to go up against, like the best players from my age group on PEI, and to kind of see where I gauge myself and see where I stand. And, I think it's the first step to pushing yourself and getting uncomfortable. And I know when I think back, I know that was the first time that I really got to challenge myself. And I know there was just, for every step from there on out, was just more of a challenge each time. When I moved from midget to major junior, I was challenged to have to rise up against guys that were better than me and get better. And then from there, it was going to the AHL. Once again, the challenge of pushing yourself and being comfortable with getting outside of your comfort zone. I think that's one thing that, can be hard to do. I think it's easy sometimes to stay within something that you're good at doing or you're comfortable with doing. And, sometimes it takes failing at something, or, I know as the defenseman, a drill that I'd always get burned wide on or something like that. Like, it can get frustrating or, maybe become something that I don't look forward to doing, but I know it's going to improve me in the long run. So, I think it's ultimately the first step to learning what it takes to become a pro. And I think we're pretty fortunate to have this program on PEI.
And for yourself, Mark, I guess what does high performance mean to you? And I guess what could you speak on in terms of good leadership? As yourself, who was a captain, I believe, the Pete's in his day, and what could you speak on in terms of what it is to be a high performance athlete and also a good leader at the same time?
Well, like Quader said, the high performance for me was the first time that I kind of really got tested. And you see these guys all year, you play against them all year, but to be kind of thrown into the pool, I guess, with them, it's more of a concentrated atmosphere where it's it's very everybody's a good player there. So that was really fun. And like Adam said, to represent PEI, to actually look down and see that Fighters got behind him there. The PEI on the jersey was pretty cool. And those were some very good memories. There it is. Some very good memories that I have from competing against the other provinces. And the second part of your question, the leadership, I think, we won PEI and it was kind of the best of the players. So you're kind of, you're taught at a young age by these very good call, kind of how to carry yourself on the ice, off the ice, what leadership really means. It doesn't mean just being a good player. You have to be a good teammate. You got to work hard. You got to do the things that others aren't willing to do to get uncomfortable, like Adam said. So those are lessons that I've carried with me throughout my career, and I will for the rest of my life, no matter what I'm doing. Just being a good teammate and being a good person.
And Scott, for you, I guess with our high performance program starting this week, and there's going to be a lot of decision making and evaluations and what have you. So I guess what skills, are your scouts prioritizing in a player? Is it skating, compete level, shooting? Is it all the above? I guess what are some specifics that, you would send a message to our high performance athletes that they should be kind of concentrating on or improving on?
Yeah, it's a good question, Tanner. I'd say first to answer the question that these guys were asked, and the value of high performance at the NHL level, and it's at any level, like Adam and Mark said, as they graduated to the next age category. It gets more hard. It gets more difficult because what you're doing is better players continue to evolve, and it's the best of the best at that age group, and it doesn't change at the National Hockey League level. We set a standard in terms of what the identity looks like for us, just like what Hockey PEI is, setting in terms of the type of teams and the types of players that you guys want. The very common, what we consider intangibles and attributes in a player is skating, hockey sense, puck skills, competing character. And they all go hand in hand in terms of, skating is value, is the way that a player thinks the game. Is the way that a player is able to handle the puck under pressure and in tight situations, and then how that player competes. But compete in skating and puck skills and hockey sense is all underlined by character. And it's committing yourself to the craft of being a hockey player and working and improving in all those areas. And we know that not every player is going to be able to skate equally or think the game quite the same or have the puck skills under certain situations. But the one thing that players can control is how they show up and they compete every day. And then also how they act both on and on the ice, or on the ice and off the ice as individuals. So those are what I'd say would be the key attributes that we look for in a player. And then we take those attributes like skating and we break skating down, to subcategories. And we do the same with puck skills and hockey sense and compete. Because when you look at a forward, you're looking at very specific attributes. In terms of how a player approaches the game as a skater, as like with defensemen, there's very specific attributes. So those are some of the key intangibles that we look at, which I'm sure you guys would be doing the same. But we evaluate and we value them all a little bit differently based on how it is that we want to build our team.
I would assume you guys are probably, looking at things and considering things away from the rink as well. I would imagine school, what they do in the community, and as well as, social media would also be something you guys are looking at. That'd be correct?
Yeah. It's, we're not just inheriting drafting a hockey player, but we're drafting a human being, and an individual that is impacted, by what they do, not just in the rink, but also what they do away from the rink. So, how an athlete carries themselves, we become very, very familiar with the player. We interview the players, we interview coaches, we interview GMs, we interview billets, we interview trainers. We do social media digging if we have to, if we believe that there's some potential red flags. And it doesn't just start at the age of 17. If you guys have seen in the NHL now, we gather information on kids as early as 13 and 14 in terms of how they treat teammates and how they handle themselves, just because with social media, you can't hide anything anymore, unlike you used to in the past. And we talk about that on a consistent basis now as scouts and as management, because we're faced with decisions too, based on the type of players that we bring into our organization, because we're represented by the players that represent us on the ice. And that goes for the entire organization. So that's where we are held to a high standard based on the type of players that we bring in.
Perfect. And Adam, for you, and I'll ask the same question to Mark, but what were things that you guys kind of felt you needed to improve on, or what was the biggest challenge in making the jump from, the OHL, then the AHL, then the next level, obviously being the NHL? What were kind of some standout challenges that you can think of back to that process?
I know for me, definitely was skating. It was something that I think I found out since that it was scout that Scott was saying with scouts, what they look at the different things. One of the red flags for me was my skating, but they would always say like, okay, like, he competes pretty hard, and the character checks out, and he can move the puck pretty good, but is he going to be able to skate at the NHL level? Like, that was kind of the question mark for me. And so when I signed my first contract with Boston and I went to Providence, I worked with a skating coach every day, every practice day. I went out 10 minutes early, did 10 minutes before, 10 minutes after, and then obviously within practice, getting little pointers and little tips. And so for me, it was being willing to listen and adapt, my style of skating, putting the work in. When I would come home in the summers, I would go in and do some work at Andrews Hockey School with Doug Shepard, working on my technique, working on getting better. So that was definitely something that for me, I needed to improve on, and I focused on. And, it was something that eventually got good enough to get to the NHL level, but was something that I had to continue to work on because the game just kept getting faster and faster. And, we keep using the word evolving because the game keeps evolving and guys are getting better at different skills. So skating was something for me that I had to constantly be working on.
And for you, Mark?
Yeah, so I think for me, Adam and I were both right shot defensemen, but we were kind of different players. He was a lot more rugged than me, obviously, and a lot tougher than me. But I was, first for me, I was a small guy, so I had to work on my, my physique. That was always a thing for me. I had to get stronger. I had to get bigger. I had to get faster. All those kinds of things. So that was more of a kind of an off ice thing. And then on the ice, I played forward probably until Pee Wee. So defense was, kind of a newer thing for me. I kind of had to learn the game defensively. And so that was, as you guys know, defensemen typically mature later. It's a harder position to learn than playing forward. You have more responsibility. There's a lot going on back there. Of course, you can see the game from probably a better view, but so that took a lot of work for me, and pretty much, I'm still working on it now. I know I'm 36 now, but it's a really hard position to play. And, I think that kind of came with getting the right coach too, having someone that's going to have patience and work with you, show you video. So for me, that didn't really happen until later in my career. I had a couple of good defense coaches, and You know, they were patient with me. They worked with me. So I think that for a young defenseman, I think learning the position and just where to put your stick, kind of how to play one-on-one battles and stuff like that. So that's very important for a young defenseman, and it took me a while to develop those skills, and you know, that was always a challenge for me.
I guess that kind of takes us right into my next kind of question is physicality. And I guess for you, Scott, how much importance is put on, fitness testing events like the NHL Combine, for example? How much kind of weight is on those types of events that you can kind of speak to?
It's really high. We understand that going in as a 17-year-old, kids aren't going to be where they'll be when they're 24 and 25. But to us, it's not only an indicator as to how in shape or physically strong an athlete is, but it's more like how committed they are to want to get better and improve. We know that every player develops, matures at a different rate, throughout their career from, really 14, 15, 16, 17. And there's a significant difference between an 18-year-old and a 24-year-old just physically. But we do a lot of work in terms of, asking these players where they train, how they train, what they do in the off season, not only from a physically strength perspective, but also from like a nutrition, and how they take care of their bodies, and how they eat and how that impacts them in season and out of season. So it's something that we really value. We invest a lot in our own organization in terms of what we make available to our players, in terms of facilities, and what's available to them in season and out of season when they become a New Jersey Devil. So it's really important because these players are playing at the highest level of hockey in the world, and they're competing against the best. But it's like any age group. Like at 14 and 15, you're going to be playing against other kids that are going to be working out and committing themselves or playing other sports, like Adam has said, and like Mark has said, that really it's staying physically active. And if you want to put yourself at the top, you have to commit yourself to just being physically active and not expect that you can play Xbox all week and then show up at game night and then be the best player on the ice. It just doesn't work that way. Maybe it worked at the age of 10 and 11 when maybe you were just that better player at your age group, but eventually it catches up to you, that where the game is easy. There comes a point in time where you may be the tallest kid, but then every other kid your age group will catch up to you, or you may be the fastest kid or the strongest kid, at 10 and 11. But as you play with better players, and I think the big thing is if you're representing PEI, when you go off and you play against the Ontarios or Team Alberta, you're going to notice that these kids, some of them may be bigger and maybe faster because they're coming from a pool of more players. That pretty soon you'll see that, yeah, maybe I was the best kid in Sherwood growing up, but now I'm seeing that, wow, there's other players that can play as well as I can, or maybe even better because they're committed to their sport. So it's something that we really value. It's important at every level.
And I would imagine for you, Adam, like, throughout your journey, how much would you say that teams that you played for, how much of an emphasis did they put on fitness testing? I would imagine it was quite large.
Yeah, it was always something that I know the butterflies never left for me. Like I was always nervous on fitness day, and it gave me something that I worked towards all summer. Like I knew what was coming. I knew I needed to come to camp in shape, and I wanted to show that I had put the work in. I wanted to show that I had committed myself through the summer, and that I was there to just like everyone else, buy into what the team was looking to do. And you didn't want to be the guy that came to camp and didn't put the work in, because that just showed that you didn't, because really you're putting yourself above the team when you do that, because you want to show that I care about my teammates and the betterment of the team, because I'm coming prepared. I'm prepared. I'm willing to put the work in. So fitness testing, it's a bittersweet thing for me, because it was always like nerve-wracking, but I think it served its purpose in keeping everyone, you know, engaged, and you know, you obviously get better results on the ice the better shape that you're in. And I know that when it came to playoff time and going into overtime and games are on the line, like those are the times where I was, you know, I was happy I had put the work in, that I was in shape. And so yeah, there's a lot of emphasis on fitness testing, and I know that guys that come in out of shape don't do themselves any favors. You know, right off the bat, they're, you know, being watched closer. They don't get the benefit of the doubt. You know, maybe if you have a couple of bad practices, like scouts and coaches, they're at least going to say, well, he came prepared, like he just had a couple bad days. Whereas if you come out of shape, they're going to say, well, he didn't come prepared, like he's obviously not prepared. So I would recommend taking it seriously when the time comes.
Mark, for you, what was your experience like with fitness testing? You had the butterflies as well, or?
Oh yeah, big time. Yeah. And every year, it was, like Adam said, you always get a little bit nervous and kind of amped up for it. But again, it's a team's way of seeing who worked out, who took it serious, who took care of themselves in the summer. And for me personally, I was never good enough to not do well in the fitness test. So if I showed up, it was kind of a way for me to immediately kind of jump out to guys like Scott, to the coaching staff, to the management, and say, okay, well, this guy worked his ass off this summer, and you know, he deserves a good look to whatever, for an exhibition game or to make the team or something like that. So for me, it was just a way to kind of right away, first day of camp, to stick out. Like I said, because I was never a guy that was going there ever on the team. I was always fighting for everything, right? So I think that's good advice for the young kids that are watching, that you know, it's a way to show that you have character, to show that you've worked and you're committed. And you know, it doesn't matter if you're the best player or not. You know, if you're a bubble guy, it's a way to get on the good side of the coaches or the management, for sure. And you know, like even in practice, the guys that were always in good shape, they're hard to battle against. Those guys are hard to play against, because you know they're going to work like a dog, and they're going to give you their full effort every drill, every shift. So those are the guys that you hate to practice against, but you love them on your team in the game because you know they're gamers. So yeah, fitness test was a tough day, but it's an important day for sure.
Perfect. And I just want to touch on, obviously you guys had, you know, each your own unique kind of journey to the NHL, and just want to talk a bit about the sacrifices you guys might have made, or talk about some specific challenges you faced in your career, and how you dealt with it, whether it be good or bad, you know, whether it's, you know, the achievements or again, those challenges. Maybe starting with you, Scott, kind of your journey to the NHL.
Yeah, well, you know, I wasn't blessed quite so much with the on ice attributes in terms of, you know, being able to make it as a player. But, you know, that didn't stop me from pursuing like my passion and my dream of working in sports. The one word I guess that's best used to describe me is persistence. And if the young kids don't know what that is, that means basically I don't quit. Like I don't give up. And that's always been like a lifelong, I don't know. I guess it's a trait that I've either I was born with, or it's something that, you know, I learned through my family and my upbringing. You know, of not just my, you know, internal family, but like of growing up and seeing what it's like to work on a farm through my uncles and, you know, their kids, and seeing what true work ethic looked like, you know, growing up in PEI, because we all have to work to make our way. It's when I was in university, and you know, I was going through a process of really wanting to determine what I wanted to do with my life, and I wanted to work in pro sports. And so I called Jim Clark, who's from PEI from Summerside, and I emailed him for about a year and a half. I'd call him every 2 weeks, email him every week, and he finally gave me an opportunity a year and a half later, and I'm forever grateful to him, Doug McLean, George Matthews, Jim Rankin, Gerard Gallant, who was there right before I left. And that's where I got my start. And just like an athlete, you know, I approach my day-to-day job just like the players that I watch on a continuum, which is when I got there, my job and my focus was to show that, you know, our staff couldn't get rid of me. Like Mark said, you know, maybe I wasn't the smartest, you know, maybe I didn't have the best memory, but every day that I showed up, my goal is how can I be better today through listening and learning? And then how can I apply that? But how do I push myself on a daily basis? So when I showed up, I was 19. And 14 years later, you know, I'm very fortunate to say that I was able to really stick through, and Columbus couldn't get rid of me at the time. And they offered me my first full-time job when I was 20. And, you know, but with that all said, like, this is where I thank God very much, you know, for the opportunity that was given to me, because I didn't want to take it for granted. It's just like the kids that show up to this camp. You know, there's a lot of kids that would do anything to be at a, you know, an elite camp like this on Hockey PEI, but you don't want to take it for granted, because just getting there is not going to get you on the team. It's what you do with that opportunity. And then it's what you do when you leave camp. Because through my young career, you know, I've been able to work now with 4 general managers. I've worked with a number of Hall of Fame hockey minds in the game. You know, I've worked with coaches like John Tortorella and Ken Hitchcock and Claude Noel, Todd Richards and Scott Arneal. You know, the list goes on, John Hines, and so on and so forth. And I've worked with a number of hockey minds, both male and female, that have had a huge impact on my career. So I would combine it with persistence is what got me there, and then becoming a student. And then just like an athlete, you know, like how you eat and how you sleep, for me, it was how can I get better at what I do? How is it that I can get better in terms of learning the game? How is it that I can get better at being a teammate and working as a cohesive unit to make our teams better, and to make me better as an individual? So that's a bit of a story as to how I got started. And in the midst of that, it was just like seeking opportunities. You know, I was fortunate to work with, you know, the U.S. Olympic team back in 2014, and that gave me exposure to how like the elite minds in the game work, and working with an elite, you know, set of players, and then getting involved in the draft process, and then getting involved in the pro side and dealing with owners and so on and so forth. And it's about showing up every day, not believing that I know everything, but it's like, what can I learn today to get better for tomorrow and to continue to grow my career? So that's a bit of an example as to how I got started and where I am today.
And Adam, maybe talk about some sacrifices you kind of went throughout your career, especially into the NHL days.
Well, that's a tough act to follow, Scott. It's pretty well said. You know, I think from an early age, I was making sacrifices, you know, to pursue hockey and to pursue different sports. And you know, I know, you know, I probably started, you know, mostly in high school. I mean, early morning skates and early morning workouts, and, you know, skipping the parties, and, you know, or leaving, showing up, saying hi and having to leave early, and, you know, sometimes doing things that, you know, different from what everyone else is doing. And that kind of propelled me into, you know, the different stages. And it was, for me, it was not losing sight of who I was and what I wanted to do, and, you know, what I stood for. And because it can be easy to get caught up in what everyone else is doing. You know, you can get pulled down different paths, and it's not easy. You know, it's not easy to go against what everyone else is doing sometimes, or sticking up for what you believe in. But I feel like for me, those were some things that helped me, you know, move from one level to the next. And, you know, I know one thing as well, that, you know, it wasn't always just about making the NHL for me. You know, it was, you know, I was playing midget. Mark Flutter was playing in Peterborough at the time. And he was a guy that, like I said, I was looking up to guys that were, you know, a little bit older than me. Flutter was a couple of years older than me. And, I was watching him and Nathan McKeever and Connor Cameron, and these guys were playing in the OHL, and I was like, I just want to make the OHL. Like, I just want to get there. So, I get drafted and I go and I do what I can. I compete, control what I can control, which is just how hard I'm going to work. Like Scott said, taking it one day at a time, like showing up, working on little details, being open to listening to coaches and taking, criticism as a positive, that I'm going to get better through things. And so, that was step one. And then it was like, okay, like maybe I can get drafted to the NHL. Like I'm going to work towards that. And then I'm going to try and get a contract now. And now I'm going to, once I get my contract, I'm going to keep working on trying to improve my game to get to the NHL. So it really was just, one step at a time, being focused in the moment that you're in. I think you need to have the short-term goals, work toward, have a long-term goal, but you really need to focus on the short-term goals to get to that point. So, and a lot of times those sacrifices are in the here and now. Those are the things that pay off in the long run. It's easy to, eating a cookie, it's a small example, but like eating a cookie at that moment is going to be great. Like it's going to taste good. You're going to enjoy it. But if you eat a cookie every single day for 30 days, like the end of the month, you might have a little bit of a stomach on you, or, like it's not going to pay off in the long run. The short-term joy of that is not going to pay off in the long run. So that'd be some advice for the group.
Mark, maybe talk about your journey.
Yeah, those are both great answers by Scott and Adam. And, my journey, I guess, was not similar to Adam, obviously, kind of propelled himself, and Scott was different altogether. But I didn't get my first NHL game until I was I think I was like 25. So I was a little bit older, and I was just battling it out in the American League. I signed my first deal with Columbus, and I was traded to Carolina, and I had some good years there in the organization in the American League, but never really got a call up. And kind of came back to Scott's point of persistence. I was just kind of said, I'm going to stick this out. Obviously, the NHL is the end goal, the long-term goal, but I'm just kind of keep grinding it out here and try and do my best, and hopefully at some point catch the eye of someone, or be the guy that's going to get called up. So, finally I got a few games with the Islanders towards the end of the season, and it was great. Again, it was one of those stepping stones that I was challenged again, and I said, whoa, I still have quite a bit of work to do here to play consistently at this level. So those were the steps for me. But again, like Adam said, there was all these sacrifices that you have to make along the way, and whether that's moving away from home when you're young. I was in grade 12 when I moved away, and I didn't really think twice about it. But looking back now, I'm 36 now, and I'm like, geez, I can't believe I moved away when I was that young. But a lot of kids do it now, obviously. But that was that's a big commitment for a young kid, that whoever does it is, to do that. It's a big sacrifice in itself. And then, of course, not partying, or I got to go home because I have a game tomorrow, making curfew, stuff like that. Those are all, those are all sacrifices that you have to make, that, these guys that are in the NHL that are great players, they've all made these sacrifices. And if you want to get to that level, unless you're Connor McDavid or a superstar, you have to do it. And even those guys, most of them, as you guys all know, probably are the hardest workers on the team. So, you've got to make these sacrifices, and it sucks at times. It's, you feel like you're missing out, or, you want to be with your friends or your family, or you want to go to the beach, whatever it is. But you got to focus on those long-term goals. And, enjoy yourself, reward yourself along the way, but never lose sight of those long-term goals.
That's awesome. And final subject we'll touch on before I let you go is parents. Start with you, Scott. First, I guess, how did your parents play a role in your development, obviously as a person, but also throughout your career? And what do you see as the role of a parent in their development, whether it be a hockey player or just in general?
It's a good question. I would say, the influence that my parents have had on me and what they've instilled in my life is, number one, to love what I do. It's just like being a player. You want to love and you want to have fun. And it's also just keeping things in proper perspective, that at the end of the day, how I act and how I treat people is going to be what I'm remembered by, and how I commit myself to like my craft. I'm not going to be known, like, God willing, in my career, we win a few Stanley Cups with whatever team it is that I'm working with, hopefully here in New Jersey to start. But I know that I'm going to be known for more as to how I carry myself in a day-to-day, and how I interact with players, and how I interact with coaches, and how I interact with, my colleagues that I work with. And that's where my parents have had the biggest influence on me. I'd say as a parent, and I have 4 young kids, and I know that one day, my kids be playing sports if that's something that they choose. But I want to have the same approach that my dad and my mom had, which was supporting me in what I was passionate about and what I wanted to pursue. And also just helping guide me, not as a coach, because coaches have specific roles, trainers have specific roles, managers all have specific roles, but as a parent, just to really just help keep us accountable, and to learn what it is to be disciplined, both on and off the ice. So I hope that helps answer that question, Tanner. I just think what's really important is, parents will never leave you. We deal with players that are 25 and 26, and their parents are still influential in their career in terms of support. It's just coming back to not forgetting where you've come from, and learning the skills and the attributes that have brought you to this point at 14 and 15, and just being able to communicate with your parents on to how you feel. What's your passion level? Where is it that you want to commit yourself, and how you can improve, and just have that support system behind you. And that's what I've had, and I still have it to this day. Like my mom and my dad, we talk hockey on a continuum, and they're always very supportive of what I do. So very fortunate that way.
And Mark, I'll let you follow that one up. Kind of speak to the role your parents had in your career.
Yeah, I feel like I was pretty lucky that my parents were very supportive of me. My dad, of course, usually was the one that took me to early morning practices. You guys know, like the early morning practices. I remember driving to UPEI, the old UPEI rink at 6 a.m. We'd practice like once or twice a week. And he was a school teacher. He's retired now, but he would take me and sit in the stands, and like looking back, like the commitment that he had to do that was unbelievable. And I'm forever grateful for that. But he would never, and both my parents, my mom was the same, they would never critique my game or say, you should have made this play or that play. They never really said much to me after the game, just that they were proud of me. Did you have fun? Did you enjoy yourself? So it was never really about points or winning or losing, just that, I enjoyed myself and I was learning along the way and having fun. So, I'll never forget that. And just interacting with kids, and now I try and pass that on, that it's, of course, it's not how many points you get or if your team wins, it's that you're learning and you're interacting with other kids and you're having fun. So I think hockey has taught us all very good lessons, and they're absorbed at that young age when you're just kind of sitting back and watching. And yeah, my parents were great to me, and they still are today. They're still very supportive of me, so I'm grateful for them.
Perfect. And we'll end up there with Adam.
Well, it sounds like we're all pretty fortunate that we have supportive parents. Mine were no different shots and flutters in the sense that they supported me. They helped me follow my dreams, and allowed me to go and play, and never pushed me in the sense that I was forced to have to play, or were hard on me or anything, but just supported me. And I'm also very grateful for that. I think the other thing that you're realizing by hearing this is that, like, none of us have made it to where we've gotten to without the help of other people. And it's really important to realize that and to thank those people along the way. And obviously our parents, in this case for us and for a lot of hockey players, their parents have made like Flutter said, moving away at a young age was super hard for me, but it was super hard for my parents to let me go. But they knew follow my dreams and go on and try and pursue something. So, I just think it's so important that thankful for, their help. And if anyone thinks that they've made it to a certain point on their own, like, they're mistaken, because there's a lot of people that help everyone, along the road, and whatever it is that you're doing, people are going to be helping you, and in turn we get to help others. So I would encourage everybody to, when they go home, to take a second and thank their parents for not only the different ways that they've helped them in their hockey careers, but also, with school or whatever it might be, because parents are special people.
Perfect. And Scott, you had something to add there?
Yeah, the one thing I just wanted to add, because as we discuss it, like Mark and Adam have said, is we're very fortunate with the parents that we have and the family structure. But I think as teammates, it is important to understand that, and those that are at this camp, that everyone's families are set up a little bit differently. And everyone may have a different sort of situation in terms of what your parents may, in terms of being able to support you, or your family, where, it may not be a parent that's helping you get through. It could be an aunt or an uncle, or it could be an older brother or older sister. But this is where I think it's important as teammates, whether you play in the same team all year, or you just show up and play with Hockey PEI, is that as teammates, it's important to support each other as well. Because you may have parents that support you that a teammate may not have that. And that's where, like, as a teammate, you can step in and help along the way, because not every child has the same sort of support system. And I'm sure Mark and Adam would agree to that too, that they've played with teammates that had parents that were really helpful, and sometimes parents that were maybe too hard, or had teammates that didn't have parents, so whatever support system they have around them. But that's where I think being a team is really important, to help each other get through, whether it's good times and bad times, just to support each other. So Mark, Adam, I don't know if you guys have anything to add to that, but just think that that's an important point too, because all families are different.
That's a great point. Yeah.
No, that's awesome, Scott.
Yeah, you're right, Scott. Just to add to that, everyone has a different situation, and the three of us are kind of had great families. But I remember even when I was younger, you jump in with somebody else's parents if your parents were busy or whatever. Some kids don't have parents, and that's the reality of it. So that's a really good point, that be a good teammate and try and help out those who maybe don't have a great situation at home.
Well, that's awesome, guys. No, that's all we have for you today. Really appreciate you guys jumping on here with this panel for our high performance program. Hope that our members kind of take in all that information, and want to wish you guys the best of luck kind of moving forward with your own lives and careers. And I'm sure we'll be speaking again down the road.